And he is a production designer and art director based right here in New York City. And he's worked on more than 30 films and designed 15 movies. And from his beginning, he actually worked on the very first pilot of Law & Order, which is very exciting for Law & Order fans. And he's continued to design different TV, including Bored to Death for HBO, and his current show, Person of Interest. He's also a member of the United Scenic Artists Local 829 and is affiliated with IATSE. And then to the right of Rick is April, and she is a former New York City location manager turned unit production manager who works in TV and film as well. And she's worked on The Sopranos, the pilot of Mad Men, The Dark Knight, Boardwalk Empire, The Carrie Diaries, and she's currently working on the Sherlock Holmes series Elementary on CBS. And she's been working in the industry for 15 years and is a member of the Director Guild Association. And she's also created a successful group for Google to help producers and production managers have a place to share resources and continue a dialogue as well. And then we have Charles Darby, who is in his 11th year of the COO of Do Art. And he's worked in the TV and film industry for more than 25 years, and primarily as a line producer. And his credits include 2 films directed by Woody Allen, a television series, The Adventures of Pete and Pete for Nickelodeon, and many other productions. And he has, back in 1993, he was the first deputy film commissioner for New York City. And he is a veteran of the Marine Corps, and he's raised more than $1 million for web startups before the internet burst in 2000. And then all the way on our end is Scott Chambers, and he's currently the Senior VP of Worldwide Media Distribution for Sesame Workshop, the nonprofit educational organization behind Sesame Street. And he's responsible for overseeing all the digital and traditional mobile media businesses worldwide, and that includes everything from publishing, interactive, TV, and home video. And he also has spent time working at Disney Publishing as well as FAO Schwartz for 6 years. So very diverse group, and we're kind of looking at it from the pre-production stage all the way through distribution. So I guess to start off, maybe we could go through and you guys could kind of give us an overview of your day-to-day or monthly activities in terms of technology, what you're looking for, and some of those challenges. Rick, can you kick it off for us?
Okay, well, what we were talking about earlier, the fact that over our 15 and 20-year careers, we've seen a transition, and actually it's still going on. The arc of the transition is from when I started in the late 80s, at the age of 12, all dimensional scenery for television motion pictures was 3D. It was built, it was painted, and it was constructed, and I brought a visual demonstration of what has changed, but it's a big room. Anyway, this is a typical set sketch for a person of interest, and this is what scenery would have looked like 20, 25 years ago. What's happened in the ensuing 25 years is that the same set looks like this. Everything that's green is virtual. Only the quarter in the corner is built. So we went from being more like sculptural and dimensional visual artists to being collaborators with a virtual medium. We work on a daily basis with post-production, with CGI graphics people. So the shape of the art department, so-called, which is who we are, has changed radically. We've gone from drafting tables to screens. We've gone from pencils and X-Acto knives to more screens. And I think within the next 5 to 10 years, the transition will be complete. I think there will always be built scenery, but we do a lot of green screen. And we're always looking for technology that eases that transition and improves our communication with post, where the actual assembly happens between virtual imagery and dimensional imagery that the actors use to frame their performance. And that's sort of what we're up to. I mean, you know, we've transitioned to, we used Vectorworks 3D for drafting, Photoshop for illustration and graphics, and a host of other software. And I think the industry is pretty pep to following the transitions that are going on. But as I say, we're still in a transitional phase. When I started shooting single camera television and film, we were shooting just that. We were shooting film, which was processed by a lab and cut with a pair of scissors and glued together. During that transition, I started working with the first high-def cameras, which go straight into Pro Tools. Sound goes into Pro Tools, and the editorial is done in Final Cut Pro, and the integration between what's filmed and created in CGI territory happens in post, and it's become permanent. So that's what's going on with us.
April?
From a production standpoint, in New York, it's busier than it's ever been. We used to have a pilot season. The pilot season exists now, and it's exploded. But the pilot season now expands all year round, and we have new shows and content being produced all year round in every medium. The New York market or location has actually extended its crew to cover New Orleans, Georgia, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Baltimore. All of these markets are farming the New York crew. And what we don't have is any real technology on the front end of physical production. All of the technologies thus far mostly been focused on post-production, art direction, graphic design, but we don't have any support in setting up production or in really centralizing our resources here in New York whatsoever. So literally, 30 pilots happened this season. There's 20-something television shows shooting in New York, or however many more. I'm sorry, I'm bad with the statistics. But there's a ton. And every time a studio calls and says, we're going to put this show in motion, I get a phone call from a producer that says, we're going to put the show in motion, and we're starting to look for offices and crew members. And it's an exact repeat every single time. And you have to find basically an office space to house 200 people, set dressing storage, warehouse storage for your wardrobe, for your scenery. You have to find a stage to put up your sets, which are we're in dire demand of. And you have to find all these crew members to fill all these positions. And there's nowhere to go for it, except for still this rather antiquated word of mouth. Look up everyone's old crew list that we publish. This information has no centralization whatsoever. Then at the end of a show, when you have all this stuff to get rid of, like all this wardrobe and all the scenery and all the everything, set dressing, you again have nowhere to go for resources. So you wind up calling all the production managers and every show shooting in town and trying to offload things and recycle things. And similarly, we have nothing really as a platform for sustainability, which is something that's a huge concern to myself and many others in the industry. We aren't really producing any technology that's helping to grow our industry, make us more efficient and smarter on the front end. We are mired in paperwork. The studios are very litigious. They require that every crew member sign 18 sheets of paper every time they start a job. Even though those same crew members are largely union, they're largely in databases, that could all be sort of digitized fairly easily if somebody got on board with some studios. I would say those are kind of the bigger global issues that we're facing us right now. At the same time, we have an industry that's growing, and we don't really have an infrastructure for our own conversation. So we're still relying on, I set up a Google group for producers and UPMs to just talk and be able to, ask each other questions about issues that are going on. But there's really not a place for that either. There's no ongoing dialogue forum.
When I joined Duart about 11 years ago, we were in we still are, a 12-story building in Midtown Manhattan, and it was filled with motion picture film processing equipment, all of which, after about 3 years, was obsolete. And we spent a couple of years trying to figure out what the hell we're going to do with all this space, possibly sell the building and simply close the business. What we have done is we started renovating space, and what I've told the employees, we are now essentially a hotel for the film and television business. And our former post-production business, which has shrunken dramatically, is really sort of like the restaurant. So it helps attract the tenants, but we are essentially now converting ourselves into a real estate business. And I think to add to sort of April's point, it would be wonderful if there was some sort of Expedia-like setup where people in April's shoes and post-production supervisors could find space that's available. I mean, you can Google and find short-term office space, but it's generally, I think, for lawyers, you have to call. If there was some means of finding out whether there's an opening somewhere, whether they would allow a production in, because most landlords aren't interested because they want 10-year leases, and April can't offer that. The production lasts 6 months. One other, so we've got this whole real estate business going on that we would love to see promoted in some way to the film community. The other side of the business that we're seeing a lot of is that we're getting requests, especially from older television series, to digitize all their content. And I believe that for most content owners, it's going to Hulu and to Netflix and to other online venues. And what those venues all require is metadata. On most of these shows, there are end credits, there are head credits. To my knowledge, there's no way to read them right now automatically where we can create metadata files, and then they're not going to be perfect, but even if they were 80% good enough, that then that content could go on the web and it would be searchable. So if there's any brilliant engineers out there that could figure that out, I think it would save a lot of time, because right now what happens is somebody has to watch it and manually type in all of that data. That's my last idea, I think.
Excuse me. So my role is, I guess, after all that work is done at Sesame, my job is to get it out there in our various ecosystems. One thing I think that technology has offered us is the same thing that it offered us in 1969. Back then, that disruptive technology was television, and we wanted to use it to teach. We felt we had this theory that we could use this new mass medium to teach young children. In that respect, the workshop hasn't changed at all, and we're constantly looking at new technologies, disruptions to both distribution as well as production. I think the biggest challenge, quite frankly, is trying to prioritize and not be sort of thrown off the path by every single new technology and disruption. One thing that we've really tried to do is experiment a lot. We are constantly looking at new platforms, new technologies, new devices, new partners, and pulling young children and families into our offices or classrooms and seeing how that technology could maybe impact their lives in a positive way. That helps us stay focused. We probably have young children, parents, and educators in a room every 3 weeks or so trying to understand what technology can do. One thing that's dramatically changed our life, obviously, is new digital distribution platforms like Netflix, like YouTube. Having said that, traditional television is still, for us, the bedrock of our distribution. PBS, for example, domestically at least, introduces half of our audience to Sesame Street for the very first time. So that's a critical platform. The flip side of that coin is that 55% of our audience uses multiple platforms to access Sesame Street content. So we're trying to be wherever our audience is, whether that's on YouTube, where roughly 25,000 hours of Sesame Street are watched every single day, to on mobile platforms and ecosystems like iTunes, to other platforms like Netflix, where we also have a core audience. The challenge is balance, and we lose a lot of sleep trying to decide sort of what that balance needs to be. And every single day, there's a new idea that comes to the front, which we consider and then usually test to determine whether or not it's going to help us accomplish our mission, which is to educate young children and help them reach their highest potential. So I think as we look forward, certainly, at New York Technology, where Sesame Street has been for the last 45 years, it's an exciting time. It's very disruptive, but we enjoy that, and it certainly makes for at least an exciting life. I think the real challenge is trying to choose which technology is right for each audience, and then what content experience is right for that technology. And that's usually how we spend most of our sort of days discussing, debating, and determining.
Great. And what is sort of the overall message that you're getting from different projects that you're working on, or companies or studios or whoever you're working with? Is there a major push to sort of innovate in the entertainment business? Is it, I guess, are projects and aspects of it being held back by like monetary budget restraints, or is it that the innovation might not be there, you're looking for different solutions that might not be fully integrated or available yet? Like, what's the message that you're getting from the people and the studios that you're working with, and what's sort of the issue of being held back? I don't know who wants to take that.
Our message is, it's a little different, I think, from yours. So we are the studio, I suppose. And so the messages that we get are really from our audience. So we're sort of next, the next step down the food chain. So the messages that we get from our audience are about choice, convenience, time compression. It's much more challenging, I think, as consumers, given all the choices that we have, to try to make a choice. We generally feel like the biggest challenge is trying to, or is discoverability, trying to be sort of found amidst the sea of choice, again, alluded to by Netflix. So I think the biggest challenge for us is trying to determine and decide like what that content experience is on that platform, whether it's Mashable, where we just launched a quick 3-minute video on Friday, or YouTube or Netflix or PBS. And so the message that we get is they want choice, and then our challenge is how to give them that choice yet still be sort of discoverable on these platforms that have so much choice.
Anyone else want to comment on those?
I think on the post-production end, the challenges we face are that the producers come to us and they essentially have less money, less time, but the same standard of quality they're going to be held to. And so it's very difficult to always meet their needs. On the real estate side, depending on the production, we have incredible security requirements, especially in the feature film world, because they're extremely worried about their data, which is the visual content being stolen.
I would just add, there has been one evolution that's been pretty integral to recent production, and that is things called synchronized, Dropbox. These kind of programs that have become heavily relied upon, they're not designed necessarily, well, Dropbox isn't necessarily designed for our industry. Synchronized is like a digital distribution where you can finally like enter everyone's names and hit a button and it goes out to 200 people versus some poor person having to do it one at a time, as we have done for so many years. But going to your point, there isn't really a top-down, like, we want you to revolutionize the industry kind of idea. It's about self-starters. It's about people who have individually new ideas on how to make their own productions more efficient or more environmentally sound. I mean, it's all about coming from within. The studios are not opposed to anything, but they're working in so many markets that they have to service kind of the needs of any particular market. So my requests are not going to be the same as someone in California necessarily. I mean, to some degree they will have parity, but not overall. And I think the studios really look to the productions to say, oh, this is something you guys are really after, let us evaluate it, let us see if we can pilot it a little bit and see if we can make it work. But I don't think there's enough people going to the studios necessarily to help support and get them motivated and thinking about what their new options might be.
I work with writers and directors daily. I'm not a writer, nor am I a director. But what I get from the writing suites in LA is that the audiences are looking for something new, something interesting, current, relevant, cutting edge. And the impulse among television writers is to become, move into the direction of becoming more and more cinematic and visually ambitious. Our budgets remain the same or smaller than they used to be. And so our challenge is to move quickly, work with the writers, work with the directors, integrate location filming with studio filming, and find new ways to do the very old art of storytelling in an interesting fashion. So it's a daily challenge, really, for us.
Great. And I know you mentioned, April, Dropbox and certain tools too. I'm curious what other tools you guys use, and also if there's like a tech startup and they come up to you and say, we want to create, exactly what you're looking for. I mean, I know that's a tall order, but what sort of deficiencies are you seeing that just aren't really available in the market right now that would be really useful day to day for what you guys work on?
I mean, I think we really don't even know what's available and what's possible, and we really need the people that are the brain trust out there that are at the forefront of these things to bring in ideas, because we can only think out of the box so far to some degree. We have this like system that we've been ingrained into to such a point, and really no one has the time or the energy when you're working on a production to start dealing with all of those questions. And it really needs to be its own standalone operation that's really forging ahead and working with productions to sort of see wherever technology can integrate and make things a little bit smoother and faster. We still have so much data that's being transferred by SBS cards and discs, and we're moving into an environment now where people are doing digital dailies on set. There's a lot of developments that are happening, again, in the post-production side that we're seeing they're not always cost-saving, but they are, time-saving. They are saving on equipment and physical products. But we'd love to see more of that in the front end as well.
I mean, we're always looking for new technology that we can adapt. I mean, we now have plotters, 3D copiers. We use computer-generated scenic parts that are cut by machines. And it's usually technology that's more generally available for industry at wide that we discover. So we're always looking for new ideas, and we're always inviting people to bring stuff to us that we can somehow adapt from a larger industrial environment. So it's a kind of a push-pull process.
Okay. And Scott, since you're in-house at Sesame, what sort of, what are you looking, is there like a point person or someone that brings these technologies to you, or do you go out and seek them out? How do you decide what you need in order to move forward with your digital initiatives?
I guess one thing that we've tried to do organizationally is sort of push that process down into the organization. So we've done a couple of things on the production side. For example, we don't have linear production and digital production. We've combined the whole team so that everybody has sort of a stake in trying to look for new experiences, new platforms, new technologies on the production side. And then on the distribution side, we do the same thing. We've pushed down the responsibility into our verticals like publishing or home video or interactive and video, so that each of those sort of vertical businesses have a responsibility to find new technologies, new partners, new devices, new distribution platforms, versus one single sort of digital group on either side. So everybody is out there sort of either in their personal lives or professional lives bringing ideas back, and then the challenge is, putting them on the table and trying to prioritize. So that's how we've chosen to do it, to sort of push it down into the organization. And what it does is it vests everybody, and it tends to make everybody in the organization a partner in trying to find new ideas. That's to some degree sort of how the workshop was first formed. It's difficult to maintain sometimes because you've got different stakeholders coming to the table with ideas that they all believe in. So the challenge can be, trying to make those decisions. But that's what we've chosen to do. So.
Great. Okay, I think we're almost out of time, but wanted to open up the floor to questions. If any of you guys want to ask the panelists anything. Anyone?
We did such a good job.
Oh, you guys are great. I was wondering.
Hello? Hi. My question is for April. I'm curious if you have any gut instincts about why there hasn't been as much innovation to address all these inefficiencies that exist in your part of the production process. What's the barrier that's keeping that innovation from entering and solving the problems?
It is innately a very antiquated process, dealing with labor unions who still operate off of fax machines and lists, and you can very rarely even get scanned email documents from them. You know, you're dealing with equipment houses that continue to be very sort of slow in their procedures and haven't necessarily updated to a point of, you know, beyond a barcode scanner to make their processes more efficient. So it's kind of like this, you know, disparate groups and entities that all play different roles, trying to get them all moving at a pace that suddenly will take you and speed the pace of the entire effort. And again, until you find someone, you know, there's a bit of a graduation in terms of age as well, frankly. You know, there's an evolution with how busy it's gotten. It's invited a lot more youth into the industry who is therefore a lot more technologically savvy, I suppose, yeah.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Sekou Arande with Arande Media. This question is directed towards Scott Chambers, but anybody can answer it. What do you think about the new deal that was cut Sunday between AT&T and DirecTV in terms of being able to connect to any device, anywhere, anytime, which has never before been done?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm the most qualified to answer that question. It's a big question, and it's a brand new deal. I think what it speaks to is, I guess, what I was alluding to before. Every day, there's some new technology or some new alliance or some new breakup, quite frankly, that we have to sort of process and understand. I think, honestly, it's too soon to comment on what that might mean to our personal and professional lives, but certainly is a big deal.
Any other questions? No? Okay, well, thank you so much for sticking around, and thank you to our panelists as well.